Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to today's show. I'm running a little late, having some technical difficulties, but I'm your host, Cheddar Chaz. A lot of news is coming about Brandon Ingram, so the timing is perfect. As you've probably seen today on Twitter, that's our news source now, that and Bleacher Report. The Pelicans are apparently interested in Alfred Sagoon. Now, this is something that was painfully obvious towards the end of the season. Pelicans have a desperate need at the center position. Alfred Sagoon, future All NBA player, just an incredible talent. But the Houston Rockets have a lot of decisions to make salary wise. We believe Alfred Sagoon is a max player, but with that run they were able to go on with Jalen Green towards the end of the year, that provides a few questions around who do you build around? Do you build around Jalen Green? Do you build around Alfred Sagoon? With the Rockets having an experienced playoff coach and finals appearance coach in Ime Udoka, does he want to accelerate the team's competitiveness? Like, what does he want to do? They have a lot of young players, and eventually they're going to have to consolidate. Maybe not this year, but soon. You got Jabari, you got Jalen Green, you got Tyree Eason, you got if they make a draft pick this year, they're rumored to have a lot of interest in Klingon. So you're gonna have Klingon. There's a lot of things they have to consider. And as a Pelicans fan, in my experience, it's incredibly difficult to develop multiple players at the same time. You've seen it with Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, even Zion. So it's going to be very interesting. So I'm not going to waste too much time. Let's get right into it. All right. So here's what I'm thinking, right? As you've probably seen, Brandon Ingram has little to no trade value right now. Like, the market is dry, and that's probably putting it mildly. And Herb Jones, he's on an incredible contract. All defense first team, young player, has been a starter since his debut, second round still. I believe he probably has more trade value at the moment than a Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is also due for an extension. You saw the contract Pascal Siakam just received, which was under the max. Brandon Ingram wants more money than that, and he's a far more less accomplished player than Pascal Siakam at this stage in his career. So let's get into the trade. You got Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, and the Pelicans 2024 pick for Dillon Brooks for salary matching purposes and Alfred Sagoon. Here's why the Pelicans do it. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? The Pelicans don't have a ton of interest in extending Brandon Ingram for a max contract. Alfred Sagoon, future All NBA player. Some people call him Baby Jokic. Just incredible talent. Has shown some ability to stretch the court. Incredible handle, incredible post game. Just all around awesome player, right? And again, the Rockets have to make a decision on maxing him, Jalen Green. If you want to draft Klingon, that's really a clunky fit with him and Klingon in the front court. We'll get more into that later. And Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks started off the season really good. Really, did his thing with the Rockets, but towards the end of the season, you kind of saw that old Dillon Brooks. You kind of saw that old regression from Dillon Brooks. Ain't no way. Yeah, ain't no way. I mean, look, if I'm the Houston Rockets, bro, I'm hanging up the phone. if I'm Houston, I'm hanging up the phone. I'm not interested whatsoever. And I would prefer not to. You say, why throw in Herb? Because Brandon Ingram has no trade value. I think you're rapidly reaching a stage where you almost have to consider giving him away. Like, you're almost considering a trade centered around picks. At this stage, you've heard that now there's some posturing involved here, but at this stage, you've heard Cleveland doesn't want him. You've heard Golden State doesn't want him. You've heard Houston doesn't want him in a trade for Sagoon, and I've personally heard Houston doesn't want him at all. Philadelphia, he's Philadelphia's plan B, maybe even plan C. He's considering, if you look at the language that was used, it says that the Pelicans are the ones that reached out to Philadelphia. So that lets you know that the Brandon Ingram, well, let's say the Pelicans are in sell mode. A lot of teams aren't necessarily in buy mode for Brandon Ingram. We don't have plenty of picks. That's actually a misconception. And Pelicans have all their own picks. One of those Milwaukee picks were kind of fake. Also, that Lakers pick. You at this point, a lot is riding on, I don't know, LeBron breaking down or LeBron potentially leaving the Lakers. That's another thing. If let's say Paul George, for example, if Paul George bolts and goes to Philadelphia, or Jimmy Butler is traded to Philadelphia, or LeBron, it's totally hypothetical. LeBron goes to Philadelphia. That's another team that's out of the Brandon trade market. That's another team. So at this point, it's going to be really difficult to do a trade centered around Brandon Ingram. I mean, I've even read that the Atlanta Hawks don't have very much interest. So if I'm the Houston Rockets, it's a it's a hard pass. Like it's a strong no. I'm only trading Alfred Sengun for a superstar, and neither one of these players really fit the bill. I think you can get a lot more for Alfred Sengun, but I really don't know what their goal is. Have no idea what their goal is. I just doubt that they have much interest in Brandon Ingram. I do like the idea that David Griffin made the call. Maybe it's one of those situations where you shoot high and you just land somewhere, kind of like this. Okay, so now you got Jalen Green. Now, to me, this is a far more reasonable deal. Like, this is far more reasonable, far more achievable. And I'm pretty sure that Houston doesn't want to give Jalen Green a max contract. Regardless of how he ended the season, it's all about, it's kind of like with Brandon Ingram, it's all about how you play well, how the team's best players complement one another, how they play well with one another. Jalen Green and Sengun have not played well with one another at this point. Again, you saw that run. That was with Sengun out of the lineup when Jalen Green pretty much had free reign to do what he needed to do. He's the number one option. Pace of the game totally just changed with Sengun being out. Thankfully, he avoided a serious injury. But this may be a bit more realistic, and this is probably more in line to what Brandon Ingram's actual trade value is. You say need a needle mover. That's the thing. I agree with you. I think they do need a needle mover. I just, for one, who's the needle mover? Who's realistically available right now? For two, who's available for Brandon Ingram? You gotta think about it, right? Brandon Ingram's going into year 9. Just had a terrible postseason display. Just terrible postseason display. Was benched in the playing game. The game was Zion got hurt. Rumored to have some attitudinal issues. Play style is kind of, seems, has more of the play style and mold of an early 2000s player, maybe 90s player. Doesn't really fit modern day basketball. Doesn't shoot a lot of threes. Doesn't get to the free throw line. Isn't a defensive player. Like, doesn't really have an incredible handle to, initiate much of the offense. It's just, man. And again, he's an expiring player. At this point, I'm starting to wonder if Brandon Ingram being on essentially an expiring contract is a benefit. Because if you look at what's happening with Zach LaVine, it's like, man, if Brandon Ingram had 2 or 3 years left on his contract, what would that look like? Would he have even less trade value? Because if people don't want to pay a 2-time All-Star $40+ million who plays more games than Brandon Ingram, why would they want to pay Brandon Ingram $52 million a year? Look at some of the stuff in the chat. Yeah, attitudinal issues. Brandon Ingram got, we got Stan Van Gundy fired. He's getting into it with Willie Green. Those are attitudinal issues. let's see. Najee is a UFA. Yeah, not a package. Najee overheard. I mean, yeah, Najee is an unrestricted free agent. You probably could do some type of sign and trade if the other team didn't want to be hard capped. But let's pivot here. So again, this is something I believe is more in line with Brandon Ingram's current value. Again, it's bad out here, and some of the things we've heard behind the scenes is just like it was predictable that his trade value wouldn't be like great, but couldn't have imagined that it would be as bad as it is. So here's another thing. Kings are rumored to be interested in Brandon Ingram. So with De'Aaron Fox being off the table, of course, Sabonis more than likely being off the table. I'm not sure how much interest there is in a guy like Sabonis anyway. I'm a fan of him, but I'm not sure how much interest there is from the Pelicans standpoint. Pelicans trade Brandon Ingram to the Sacramento Kings in a three-way deal with the Pacers. The Pacers receive Harrison Barnes, Dyson Daniels, and the Pelicans 2024 first, which is pick 21. Pelicans receive Miles Turner, who they've like coveted for years now. David Griffin's been trying to get Miles Turner for a very long time. Kevin Huerter, who they've coveted for years now. 2024 pick from the Sacramento Kings this year, 2025 second rounder, and 2027 first round pick. Now, here's why the Pelicans do it. You get potentially your center of the future, a guy you coveted for a long time. You get a really good role player in Kevin Huerter, and you get to restock your war chest a bit. At 13, it's going to be some interesting options available there, even though this is not an incredible draft. Hey, maybe you even trade that first and, acquire a couple more seconds. Maybe you get a future first or two. Why the Kings do it? Kings need another guy who can create his own shot. Only issue with that is you got Keegan Murray, who's not really a shot creator at this stage of his career, but much like Trey Murphy, you don't want to block the runway for Keegan Murray to be as great as possible. So I don't know if Brandon Ingram is the best option there, especially at the price tag when there's a guy like Kyle Kuzma available for a fraction of the cost, right? I don't know if Brandon Ingram is the guy that you want to put there because he could potentially be in Keegan Murray's weight. So you got Harrison Barnes and Dyson. The Pacers love Dyson Daniels, or at least they did when Dyson Daniels was initially drafted. He had some impressive Pacers workouts. You get a guy with championship experience in Harrison Barnes, true veteran. Pacers already made it to Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe they feel like they need just a little more championship experience to put them over the edge, and you get a first round pick for your troubles. Miles Turner is expiring. They got a couple bigs that they need to focus on retaining in Indiana, a couple backcourt players as well. But you got Obi Toppin is going to be a free agent. You got a couple decisions they need to make in the short term that will kind of let you know what they plan on doing with Miles Turner. They've also been trying to trade Miles Turner for years. I know y'all remember, like they've been trying to trade Miles Turner for a very long time to no avail, right? Here's another one. Nick Claxton. Now, here's the interesting thing. Nick Claxton wants a lot of money. Nick Claxton wants a lot of money, bro. And I like Nick Claxton. I think Nick Claxton has a defensive player of the year potential. Can switch, can defend the rim. Like y'all got to watch some of his matchups against Joel Embiid. Like Nick Claxton, and he got that dog in him. Nick Claxton is not afraid of nothing. But you're talking about $20-25 million a year. Let's just say for this example, $20 million a year, right? The Nets don't want to move off Mikal Bridges. They're looking to pair a star level player with Mikal Bridges and build something in Brooklyn. So here's the deal I'm thinking about, right? You got Dorian Finney-Smith. You got Cam Thomas, who David Griffin has had some interest in the past. You get two of Phoenix's first in 25 and 27, and you have a sign and trade for Nick Claxton. In return, the Nets get Brandon Ingram, Jose Alvarado, and 2025 first via Milwaukee. Now, in this scenario, the Pelicans address their front court need. You even upgrade Jose with Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas has a lot of promise. And even if you decide to hold on to CJ for a little while, you got someone who can learn under CJ's tutelage in Cam Thomas. Dorian Finney-Smith, high-end role player, a guy who's really coveted around the league. This classy guy. Probably should have traded him last year, to be honest. Now they're kind of selling at a deficit. So these trade, Jose got to stay too. Bro, you can't keep everyone. You can't keep everyone, realistically. Jose is on a team option. Jose is going to want to get paid. You know what I'm saying? Jose going to want to get paid. And there's upgrades. Like there's upgrades available. Jose, I like Jose a lot, but Jose is a fringe NBA player at this point. Somewhere along the lines, Jose's become thought of as like TJ McConnell. It's like, no, he's not. Like he's not that. Jose had a terrible postseason as well. We're gonna say Jose was injured too. Like some of these guys, just you got to move on from them. You got to move on from them, man. Let's see. Pacers always Pelicans. Yeah, bro. Like Pelicans hold on. I'm sorry. Yeah, they hold on to guys way too long. It's like the perfect time to trade Brandon Ingram was last off season, or even at this past trade deadline. Think about this. Last off season, you could have gotten the second pick for Brandon Ingram. Now, what you did with that second pick is up to you, whether it be Scoot, Brandon Miller, whatever. But you could have gotten the second pick and a player. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, let's say you like Mark Williams. You could have gotten Mark Williams and the second overall pick for Brandon Ingram. This year, you're talking about, man, you'd be lucky to get a top 5 pick. Like you'd be lucky to get a top, like you'd be lucky. Let's say the Pistons, for example. You would be lucky to get that number 5 pick and Duren, maybe. Like you'd be lucky. If you walked away with the number 5 pick and Duren, you won. Like that's what Brandon Ingram's value is right now. And like you look at Philly. Philly's another option. I spoke about Philly before. If y'all saw the report today, you're talking about maybe what, 2 firsts, 3 firsts, and if you want to get a let's say placeholder center guy like Reed in that trade, and you get a huge trade exception to where when a star player or a player you covet becomes available, you can just absorb that player without sending salary out. But man, it's looking real ugly for the Brandon Ingram market. And it goes to show you how teams view the Pelicans around the league, specifically Brandon Ingram. Like Borrego, for example. Borrego is a coveted head coach right now. No one knows if he's going to get the job in LA or Cleveland or Detroit or what have you. But the Pelicans struggled offensively most of the year. Shout out to my dog Chris. Y'all be sure to check out his show In Space on Boo Crew Media. So the Pelicans struggled all year offensively. They struggled in the playoffs offensively as well. Struggled in the clutch offensively. And teams are still after the Pelicans like offensive coordinator for a head coaching position. That goes to show you that teams around the league don't view the coaches as the problem. They view the players as the problem, specifically Brandon Ingram in this case. Again, all it really takes is Donovan Mitchell saying, yo, go get me Brandon Ingram. And I'm sure the Cavaliers will acquiesce and try to make it happen. But man, with these reports coming out, it just doesn't seem promising at all. You got to know on Jared Allen. I don't even know what the Warriors realistically would have to offer. Maybe you're talking about if you can convince them to give you Kuminga, then cool, I guess. But, I really don't know what they would have to offer. You said Borrego was a coach before. Borrego was a head coach for the Orlando Magic, which was a bad team. The Charlotte Hornets, another bad team. He sat out a year, made it to the Pelicans, which had one of the worst offenses in the league, like at some point, especially in the postseason. And he still covered it as a head coach. How does him being a coach before for bad teams? How does that help him in this scenario? Most of the reports are coming from y'all, dude. We not Woj and Shams and all these people. I mean, the reports are out there. Like, I'm not sure if you like abreast to what's going on here. Knicks have picks and need another wing. You're talking about a deal for Julius Randle? Because I have seen stuff like that floated out there. I just don't. You would have to find a third team to send Julius Randle to. Julius Randle also hates New Orleans and the Pelicans. He did not enjoy his time down here. Remember, Julius Randle was a Pelican during AD's last year, and he does not like New Orleans. Saying he's not a random assistant because he's on the pair. They want him because he was a former coach. I don't. Okay, if they want him because he was a former coach, why do they want JJ? JJ's never been a coach. Kenny Atkinson's also a former coach. Why isn't he the leading candidate? Monty Williams is a former coach. Why isn't he rumored to be one of the leading candidates? You know, I don't. Okay, what's being reported? I'm late to the party. What's being reported is the Pelicans reached out to Houston for Sengun. Houston rebuffed, not interested. From what I'm told, the Rockets, the words used were the Rockets do not like Ingram. That's the words that were used. Now, maybe that could be how I'm interpreting that. Maybe I'm interpreting it incorrectly. Maybe they just meant they're not interested in that trade. But from what I was told, the Rockets do not like Ingram. Mitchell Robinson and Mitchell always hurt, man. Mitchell Robinson always hurt. Boogie, I liked the idea of Bohan a couple years ago when he was with Detroit because of that contract. He had a huge expiring salary, but I think that ship has sailed, man. Randall, Mitchell Robinson, McBride, Bohan. Man, Mitchell Robinson always hurt, bro. I don't know, man. I don't know. We're a small market team, dog. They want opportunities off the court. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But here's the crazy thing, bro. That has a lot to do with the players themselves. Like, for example, Anthony Davis, all he got since he left is the Ruffles deal. Like, it's only been Ruffles. He hasn't gotten all these outside endorsements, and he hasn't gotten all that. Like, it like, I think a lot of it has to do with like the players and their personality and things they bring to the table. Let's see. Cade Cunningham and picks for BI. I do that. I do that. I don't know why Detroit would do it. Again, man, it's that pending contract, bro. You're talking about $52 million a year for a one-time All-Star, like one-time All-Star reserve. And if I'm not mistaken, BI might have been an injury replacement in that All-Star year. So one-time All-Star reserve, no All-NBAs, no defensive first team, third team, nothing. Just nothing. You're talking about a fringe All-Star reserve who's demanding a max contract starting at $52 million a year. That's crippling to an organization. You're talking about something like what happened with Bradley Beal. It's tough. It's tough. Let's see what Cade requested is for money. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think Cade won enough to even know that Monty was a problem or not. I think Cade's had some injury issues, had some issues kind of figuring out how to win and navigate in the league. He's the number one pick. So Cade gonna get the money. Cade gonna take his money and then he'll figure it out. Maybe he don't get the third contract. Like, he leaves before the third contract, but he's gonna take the money behind Dice for Naz Reid. Now, you can't do that. I'll do trade BI for Cat. That's something that's been thrown out there a lot. But BI Naz Reid is he has a team or player option soon, so he's gonna be a free agent soon. He's gonna try to get paid. BI is still on the 26. All right, yeah, BI 26. BI makes 27 at the start of the season. Also, he's going into his 9th year in the league. I don't know realistically, what did we expect him to do better? He's going to get faster. He's going to get stronger. He's going to grow 4 more inches. Like, sometimes a player just is who they are. You know what I mean? It's not a knock on him. It's just He is who he is. You know, he's had some really solid play, but you know, if you got to remember, Brandon Ingram was the number 2 pick. Brandon Ingram was held as the herald as the next Kevin Durant or KD light, and thus far he hasn't even been DeMar DeRozan. It's like it's really shaping up to be another Tobias Harris situation. Let me see. Not a Pels fan, so I don't watch them on paper. They look good. What was the problem this year? Chemistry on the court. Need better facilitating. I don't feel like Jonas Valanciunas was really as big of an issue as people made it out to be. I just think how the head coach wanted to play, Jonas didn't complement that. But I don't think Jonas was an issue. I think the head coach was a large part of the issue as well. I think Willie Green is a tactician on the floor. Did I hear anything about CJ and Knights picking Murray? Nah, I haven't heard anything about that. If I'm Atlanta, the only reason I would want CJ is because of, he is a veteran, but you're talking about a similar issue with a small backcourt. Like, people didn't want to trade for Trae Young because him and CJ will have a small backcourt. Well, if you trade CJ to Atlanta, it's going to be CJ and Trae Young. So I haven't heard anything about that for CJ. One thing that's very important to note, I do think CJ has to go at some point this season, but CJ hasn't been a part of the problem whatsoever. Hasn't been a part of the problem. He said CJ is Sam Jackson of Django. Man, where you get that from? You going far. Saints Pelican, where you coming? Where you come from with that? What's the best trade with Atlanta? I would say, man, probably Brandon Ingram for Murray and Capella. Brandon Ingram, Larry Nance for Murray and Capella. Then you flip Capella's $20 million expiring contract for, maybe the big of the future. Maybe, if something became available, maybe for some more wing depth, something along that lines. He said something along the Wizards or Heat we're trading with. Yeah, I think so. It depends, right? Because the Wizards, they're not really in an acceleration stage where they're not really expected to be good at any point. They're in full rebuild mode. But the Heat, I think the Heat could be very interesting. It's just about how the Pelicans feel about Tyler Herro. Do they like Tyler Herro? Do they like Jaime? Is Jaime available? Do they like was it Jokic over there? Like, who do they like? I definitely think even if they keep Jimmy, I think they'd have some interest in Brandon Ingram because the Heat, them, quote unquote, having Heat culture, they like to think they can fix everyone. So they probably feel like, we bring over Brandon Ingram, we'll be able to fix him. We'll be able to, get him to buy in. And it's like, again, bro, you're going into year 9. Like, he is who he is. Like, come on. Like, he is who he is. Draft Bronny, hold him hostage. That might be, is that Bill Simmons? Is that you? Bill Simmons, is that you? A true point guard is what's needed. Man, even if it's not a quote-unquote traditional point guard, you need a lot more IQ on the floor because that really shows in the clutch. Like, if you watch the Pelicans in the clutch, oh, God, like, the IQ is just terrible. Terrible, especially compared to a team like OKC, teams where they just they know what to do. They know how to get a bucket. Even with Dallas, like teams that just know what to do. They know exactly how to generate an easy look. You think Trajan covers any of the guys he drafted? I think he probably covers Dyson and Hawkins. Probably Dyson and Hawkins. I think he probably reads the room. Kyra's gone. Everyone else is gone, pretty much. It's just Herb, Trey, Dyson, and Hawkins. Everyone else is gone. Null's gone. Jackson's gone. Kyra's gone. Capella a lot. Nah, you're not drafting Capella as your big of the future or nothing like that. You're drafting Capella as a placeholder and for his $20 million expiring salary, because you're going to probably trade Capella at the deadline. Capella's not a long-term option whatsoever. Like, no way in hell. And besides, and here's another thing. With drafting a guy like Capella, here's another issue. A guy like Capella, a rim runner, Claxton, a rim runner, they thrive in a system where they can catch lobs and get out in space. The Pelicans can't throw lobs. Pelicans can't even throw a lob. Like Zion, you know how many alleys a year Zion should have? Like Pelicans can't throw a lob to save their life, except for Najee Marshall, who's a free agent and maybe leaving. Van Fleet, hey man, something centered around Van Fleet, and I want Jabari Green from Houston. I'm sorry, Jabari Smith. I want Jabari Smith from Houston. I think the deal centered around him is the way to go if I'm Griff. But again, I've heard Houston just they don't want to be in the Brandon Ingram business. The last thing I've heard, now again, that could be posture and things could change soon, but that's what I was told. CP3, is he too old? Yeah, CP too old, man. It's CP too old. You could like if CP was a free agent and he wanted to take like a small part of the mid-level exception, cool. But trading for CP at this stage, nah. CP can't even make it through a whole season. Like, and you got too many guys like that. You got Brandon Ingram who can't make it through a whole season. Zion who struggles to make it through a whole season. You got CJ. CJ has lung issues. You got and you're gonna bring in Chris Paul, who just man, I don't know. Brandon Ingram and Bam are supposedly close friends. Where does Jimmy go? I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe Philly. Maybe Philly. I know Philly is supposed to have some interest in Jimmy. Paul George, it seems like the Clippers are telling Paul George, hey, if you can go out there and find someone to give you a max contract, go out and do it. You know, Tyus Jones. I like Tyus Jones a lot. I think Tyus might be too expensive, though. I think he might want like 20 plus mil. If Nick Claxton getting 20 plus mil, Tyus Jones probably getting 20 plus mil. I like Tyus Jones a lot, though. The Pelicans should have tried to make a move for him in Gafford this past season. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Yeah, I think Jimmy going to Philly too. If the Clippers keep Paul George, I think Jimmy probably going to Philly. I think Pat Riley, he's probably tired of Jimmy, to be honest. Probably tired. Maybe we dump some salary for picks. I mean, yeah, that's potential. I mean, the Pelicans have to start getting some more picks in because the picks they got, like, they're not as valuable as they appear to be. Like, those picks were cool maybe 2 years ago, but once those picks become actual players, they lose all of their value. You know what I'm saying? But yo, that's been today's show. I don't think a deal for Sengun is likely at all. If I'm the Rockets, I totally would not do that. I think it would be a terrible move by the Houston Rockets front office. If I'm the Pelicans, I pivot and say, hey, what about Jabari? And maybe they've done that already. Or even Jalen. What about Jalen? Maybe they've done that already. I like the Philly idea, just getting a huge trade exception and getting some more first. Maybe, you take back Reed. I'm not a huge fan of Reed, but he's a solid, front court depth piece. But we'll see, man. But that's been today's show. I appreciate y'all. Share the stream. Leave your comments. Let me know what y'all think. Curse me out. It's all good. We just talking here. I don't have no power. If I did, Brandon Ingram would have been traded about 2 off seasons ago. But that's just me. I'm out. Peace.